Hi, I'm Dr. Paul, I'm a chiropractic consultant, and let me share with you how we turned around one of my clients to had a total asset gain of a little over $600,000 in 1 year. And he started with me when he was seeing 70 patient visits a week. So let me walk through how that happened within 1 year. Again, I'm Dr. Paul, I'm a chiropractic consultant, and I teach my T3 system. Essentially, I teach what I did. I ended up opening 77 offices in 20 states, and I was able to retire early. But the system involves 3 steps. Number 1 is how to have a highly profitable practice. Those are 4 major categories. There's a lot of subcategories, but basically the 4 major areas are patient retention, new patients, fees, and overhead. It's learning how to master all of 4 of those to maximize your exchange of time for money. So that's the first thing we do. Now that's what we did with Dr. Jeff. He's a chiropractor in, outside of Kansas City. He's in a suburb of about 30,000 people. And that's what happened. He was frustrated after 5 years. He was stuck at seeing 70 patient visits a week. And finally, he happened to see one of my videos on YouTube, how we create highly profitable practice and for chiropractors. He gave me a call, and the rest is history. So he started it. So I'll walk you through the steps. But his total assets increased $608,000 in the first year. Let me just share with you how that works and how you create a profitable practice, freedom, lifestyle, and wealth. So number 1, like I said, is you have to master the 4 big categories. There's a lot of little categories to running a practice, but you can't substitute those 4. Patient education, how to keep patients, new patient marketing, how to control your overhead, and your fees you charge. That's what determines your profit in your practice, exchanging time for money. Now, most chiropractors can only see about 200 visits a week, physically and emotionally. So there gets to be a point where you just, doesn't matter how many patients you know how to get and keep, you just can't do it. You know, that's like me. As soon as I knew how to maximize my time for money, I had to hire my first associate doctor, then my second associate doctor. So the problem was never, after you learned how, it's never about new patients and retention. Now you have to learn how to leverage it. So that's the first step. And so with Dr. Jeff, we took him from 70. Well, actually, with him, we started with patient retention because he was losing a lot of patients, which is very common with chiropractors. Chiropractors, every time I do practice analysis, I just did a practice analysis 2 days ago, and the doctor was losing, and this doctor was 55 years old, and he was losing he lost 52% of his patients by the 6th visit. They did not even get through the second phase of healing before he just was losing them left and right. And he was only seeing 40 visits a week. It's really struggling. That's a bad situation to be in when you're 55 years old, seeing 40 visits a week. So anyway, when Dr. Jeff started, fortunately, Dr. Jeff was younger, but he struggled for 5 years, seeing 70 visits, and then he gives me a call. So we applied our patient education system first. And our patient education is very straightforward. We teach the science of the 3 phases of healing. We do not teach subluxations. We teach the science of the 3 phases of healing. It's number 1, it's clinically appropriate. That's what all the care should be based on. Number 2, it's easy for the patients to understand. We're not trying to teach them, a philosophy of chiropractic. So we're already kind of teaching them basics of healing as it applies to them. In other words, it's about them and healing. It's not about the chiropractic profession. And it's amazing how much more people listen when you talk about them and how they heal versus talking about your profession. So that's number 1 so that's what we did we did focus on new patients because we saw he was losing too many, and it just wouldn't have been smart to spend time or money bringing in new patients when you're losing, a third of them to 50% of them within the first 6, 7, 8 visits. So that's the first thing we paid attention to. And we went from 70 to about 140 visits a week. And that happened fast. With him, it happened like in 60 days. So his revenue increased over $100,000 in 60 days. And by the way, 92% of my clients increased their business over $100,000 in 90 days. Okay, so we take them from 140. Now we put all these systems in place. So now he's got good patient retention. Then we went over to the marketing. Now we had to teach him other things, how to hire staff, how to train staff. You know, there's growth issues, how to lay the office out for high efficiency, things like that. So there's a lot of secondary issues. But you always have to know the core, the four core. So having said that, we cleaned up his office, streamlined it. We implemented the 3 phases of healing. We made it affordable to the patients, and they just kept staying and staying. It all made sense to them. And so he goes up to 140 visits in 2 months. And then in about 6 months, he goes up to about 200 visits a week. And that's it. That's all you can really see, emotionally, physically, is about 200 visits a week. And that's what I was about 220 visits a week. I remember for a while, I used to see 100 visits a day, and that was miserable. I was miserable. I was fatigued. I was hurting. My wrist was hurting. My back was hurting. It wasn't sustainable. It was miserable. So I found usually between 180 and 220 patient visits. But 80% of the chiropractors don't know how to get to that point. They're stuck at 80 visits a week, 110 visits a week. Most chiropractors typically lose $250,000 a year just in lack of productivity. I mean, if you just didn't see 50 visits a week at $50 a visit, that's 5 times 5 is 25. Or even 100, let's say you take 100 visits times $50 per visit, that's 5,000 a week, 52 weeks, 5 times 5 is 25. So doctor seeing 80 visits a week, and really, if he knew how, he could see 180. Well, that's $250,000 that they're not making, or it might be you might not be making it. And it's usually from lack of knowledge or skill. That's what it's from. The doctor doesn't know that. The doctor doesn't know what he doesn't know. Just like, Dr. Jeff. For 5 years, he thought he knew everything. He even took practice management courses. They were chiropractic practice management, and got nowhere with it. So he stuck at 70 visits a week for 5 years, and finally he's frustrated, gives me a call. So anyway, here, let's follow through with the story. So he goes up to 140 quick, so he increases business over $100,000. And then he keeps going. So 6 months later, he goes over to, and now he's maxed out. He's seeing as many patients as he can see. And even I was just talking to him the other day, and he's even tired. He saw like 210, 220 visits that week. And he's like, man, that wore me out. I'm like, yeah. Well, the good news is he learned how to maximize his time for money. So after he had 140, then we taught him marketing. So then he just applied the high principled marketing. Our marketing is based on referrals and patient education. It's not based on spending money with advertising. So our marketing is based on high quality patients. So we taught him marketing. So now he knows how to get them and keep them. Now he went from 140 now to he can't see as many patients as he physically knows how to create. So that's always the first step that you want to get to. Great. Now that'll give a good lifestyle, but it won't create wealth or freedom. Now, here's tier 2. Then we teach how to hire and train and manage associate doctors. So right now, he's interviewing for his first associate doctor. Now, that does 2 things that dramatically change the chiropractor's life. That'll change your life when you know how to hire and train associate doctors. Number 1 is it creates freedom. He's going to be able to work 3 days a week if he wants to. He's going to be able to take a week off, 10 days, go to Europe. He's going to be fine. He's not going to lose all kinds of money by taking a week off out of his office. So you get a lot of freedom, you get a lot more vacations, a lot more freedom, and you get a passive income. The way we do it, it only takes about $7,000 to pay the associate before they break even. They'll break even at about 15 visits a week. Break even meaning you don't have to pay them anymore. So that's it. So we don't think like, oh, we got to pay them $100,000. No. We just got to pay them in 15 visits. Usually that's about 60 days. Usually within 30 to 60 days, they're seeing 15 visits and 50 visits plus. In other words, they're making their own money. We don't have to pay them anything out of our pocket anymore. That's how that works. So now again, if you don't know how to keep and get patients, then yeah, it'll cost you a lot of money. You'll lose a lot of money with associate doctors. But that's not how we do it. We know how to keep them. We know how to get them. We know how to create more business than we physically can handle. That's through our systems. Exactly what happened with Dr. Jeff. And then now he's looking for his associate doctor. So now he's going to leverage his time. He's gonna have more freedom, and he's gonna be able to see more patients. So he's gonna be able to come up another 100, 150 visits a week, pretty easy. And he'll make about 50% of that revenue. And the overhead's already paid for, so there's real high profit when you're dealing with associate doctor revenue. And the associate doctor will make $100,000 a year when they're seeing about 80 visits a week. So it's a great opportunity for the associate doctor to learn all the systems and make a good income. So our associate doctor plans work out real well for both parties. Okay, so that's tier 2. So remember, the first tier is having a highly profitable practice. Tier 2 is learning how to leverage your time and money through associate doctors to create freedom and passive income. Now, you'll make about $150,000, give or take $100,000 to $200,000 per associate doctor, depending on your dollar per visit. And if you wanted to invest, you'd have to make like $8 million at 50% overhead to have 4 million, at 50% taxes to have 2 million to put in the bank, at about a 2.5% to 5% interest rate to make $100,000 a year. You'd have to make $8 million to create a $100,000 passive income. But with the associate doctors, it only takes $7,000 to make a passive 6-figure income. These are what are called high leverage points of time and money. And by the way, this is exactly what I did. I teach exactly what I did. This is exactly how I was able to retire at age 32. Now, that's a great lifestyle. You don't get burnt out. You got freedom. You're making really more money than you can spend. I mean, you already are, now you're in a nice house and all, driving a nice car, eating nice restaurants. You know, it's a great quality of life, good vacations, all that. But that's not what's going to create wealth. So the third and last step that I teach, and this is exactly what I did, is I teach how to invest in real estate. And here's the deal. I learned, and this is why I invested in real estate real early, is 70% of the millionaires are through real estate. So you have less than a 30% chance of having a net worth over $1 million if you do not invest in real estate. And only 1% of millionaires become millionaires exchanging time for money. In other words, being in your practice. That's only 1% of the population. It's because even when doctors make a lot of money, they typically buy the big house. They're kind of known as big hat, no cattle. Doctors are kind of known as having, a high lifestyle with no assets, because that's what they do. They spend all their money on living. And they typically don't have any investments. And so they got to go to work every day. Well, that's a bad situation. Okay, so that helps the second situation. Now we have more than enough money, not only to have a good lifestyle, but also to have freedom. So that takes us to the third tier, which is real estate. And the reason real estate has created more millionaires than stocks and bonds. Again, if you were going to invest in stocks and bonds, you would have had to make $8 million to make the same passive 6-figure income. I only spent $5,000 to $7,000 to make a 6-figure passive income. See, that's what we teach. So that's what Dr. Jeff is doing right now. Now, he was renting, so he didn't have his own home. And a lot of times chiropractors can't when they get out of school because of debt to income ratio, credit issues, not making enough money. So he's been living in an apartment. He's got 3 kids. Living in an apartment, seeing 70 visits a week. That's a very depressing situation. And that's 5 years out of chiropractic school, which is better than the doctor that I just referred to you earlier, the guy that was 55 years old, seeing 40 visits a week. I mean, he's lost a ton of money and lifestyle in his last 20 years of practicing. So we go to the next step with Dr. Jeff. So let's count the money. So he goes from, so what kind of increase is that? So he went from 70 visits a week, 200 visits a week. From 70, that's 130 visits. So he increased his back to practice 130 visits. Multiply that times $1 per visit, 50. That's the national average, 50. Okay, that's $6,500 a week. So let's go 130 visits a week times $50 per visit times 52 weeks in a year. So how much money did he just increase his practice by having this knowledge and skill? $338,000. And 97% of this is profit because he's already paid the expenses, the major expenses, his rent, his utilities, all that stuff. Okay, so we're looking pretty good. So what do we do next? Well, the first thing you have to do is you can't rent because you're making everybody else wealthy. So we taught him how to invest in real estate, but we taught him how to buy his home with owner financing. So he didn't need a bank. So he couldn't do it before with the bank. Well, now it was no problem because I taught him how to do owner financing. So he just negotiated owner financing for a $270,000 home. $270,000. So now he's got a big 4-bedroom, 3-bedroom, big 3-bedroom house with his kids, backyard. And so he increased his business 338. And on top of that, 270. That's $608,000. He just did a $608,000 turnaround from 70 visits a week. Why? Because he picked up the phone and called me. That's why. We totally changed how he thought, what he knew, his skill level, how to run his business, changed everything. And when we did that, it totally changed his practice. And it happened that fast. And that typically does happen that fast. Like I said, 92% of my clients increase their business $100,000 in 90 days. That's pretty easy. So, all right. So what's the next step for Dr. Jet? Well, now he goes to the next level. He learns how to hire, train, and manage his first associate doctor. And you never just want one. Then you go to the second one. Well, he can do that because he knows how to create more patients than he physically can handle. He knows our patient education and he knows our marketing. So he's a new patient machine essentially. So he needs people to help process the patients. So then he'll go to as the second associate doctor. But then the very next step that he needs, in other words, I'm leading him through these steps. So the very next step is he needs to buy his office because he's cutting a check every month that's going to make somebody else wealthy instead of him. Now, remember, when he bought the real estate and when you buy your home, you're already cutting the check. You're just getting no assets out of it every month. Somebody else is benefiting in all those ways. You're not. Now, here's the deal though. Chances are most chiropractors can't buy their office because when you buy commercial real estate, you have to put 30% down. So if you were going to buy, say, a $300,000 building at 30%, that's $90,000. Well, what would you have to do to come up with $90,000? You'd have to collect $360,000. So you'd have to collect $360,000 at a 50% overhead to have 180, at 50% in taxes to have 90. And that's why you typically do not see chiropractors owning their building. And if they do, they're typically like in their 40s or 50s when they finally buy it. In other words, they've wasted 20 years of helping somebody else get wealthy. That doesn't happen with us. So what I do is I teach the doctors, and I actually do it for them too. I help negotiate. I teach them what's called owner financing. We don't have to involve the banks. We just work with the owner. And believe me, there's a lot more opportunities like that. And I always say, an owner is always better to sell their property to me than to go and put it on the market and sell it to a realtor and then take that money and get, 2.5%, 2% interest rate. They'll lose 12% just going through a realtor. 12%, 3% closing costs, 3% per realtor, you're at 9%. Holding costs are 3%. They're going to lose 12% just by selling that property by going through a realtor. So I coach actually the sellers how not to do that. So they'll make that much more money. So on a $300,000 property, you're talking about what, $36,000. They're going to lose $36,000 by going through a realtor, not with us. So we'll do owner financing. We'll give them a better interest rate than they'll get, and we get the property. And then what do we get out of the property? Well, we got huge leverage. We got appreciation, we got equity going in, we got depreciation, we got cash flow if it was rented out, if it was rented out in this case. But it's gonna be cheaper for him to own that building than it is to rent. Because he's paying everything he's paying the owner. So the very next step after the associate doctors, I'm gonna teach him how to negotiate the office. And then we teach him how to do the same thing with investment real estate. How to pick up investment real estate, owner financing. You don't want to use the banks because you're very restricted and limited. You can only do 4 properties before a serious guidelines kick in and they push you into 30% down rates. We don't have to deal with that at all with owner financing. There's no limits at all. I don't have to put 30% down. I teach how to do it. So that's how we just pick up properties left and right, owner financing. And they will always get a better deal with us because, like I just shared with you, when we give them a good interest rate, they won't lose all the money. They won't lose 12% just selling it. And it's a great deal for the buyer because just like Dr. Jeff, he went from renting, not losing. Matter of fact, it was costing him money because that's not tax deductible. He went from renting and losing money to owner financing to creating wealth. Just because we taught him how to do owner financing to buy for his first home. Well, now that he knows how to do his first home, he now knows how to do additional homes. So now we just pick up 1 or 2 properties a year, and it only takes 2 properties a year after 5 years to become a multimillionaire. That's it. So that's what we teach. I'm Dr. Paul. That's exactly what we teach. We teach the exact same. I call it the T3 system, 3 tiers. The first system, and obviously you can't do the other 2 if you never learn the first one. So if you never learn to keep patients, you never learn marketing, you're never going to be able to hire an associate doctor. You're never going to have freedom or passive income, the easiest form of passive income. And chances are you're never going to be able to invest in real estate, which is the #1 wealth creator. So that's where it all starts. You have to learn how to run your practice first. The very first place it starts is not new patients. You got to learn how to keep them. So that's exactly what we teach. Those are all the systems. But that's exactly what Dr. Jeff did. So now he's in a total driver's seat. He increased his income over $300,000 a year, bought a new house, bought a new car, just took his whole family on a cruise vacation. Now he's looking to hire his first associate doctor. And after that, we're going to show him how to buy his own, do the same thing, owner financing with his office. So he's going to have another asset, another $300,000-$400,000 asset and it's not going to cost him anything to get it because he's already paying rent. So it's not going to cost him anything to increase his asset base, $400,000. Then from there, what we do is we go and teach him how to do, buy more real estate, pick up a couple properties a year, make sure you have at least 2 associate doctors. And then if you want, and I tell my guys, I said, you can actually train and sell offices. You can bring people on, associate doctors, and sell them an office. So they can actually work with you for a year, make you money, learn how to do everything, and sell them an office for $250,000. And they made the money to go set up the office. See, that's called huge leverage of time and money. That's how it should be done. Unfortunately, I see too many chiropractors seeing 70 visits a week, 40 visits, like they call 40 visits a week, and they're barely getting by. I mean, they make more money if they were a driver at Amazon than a chiropractor, which is ridiculous. We didn't spend $100,000 and $200,000, go to school for a minimum of 7 academic years to make $80,000 a year or $40,000 a year. So anyway, that's how you create wealth. That's what I teach. I teach how to have a highly profitable practice. In other words, I teach how to get out of your practice, not stay in your practice and hurt yourself in your practice and die in your practice, like most chiropractors. So I teach you how to create a bit more business you can handle, bring in associate doctors and work part-time. Your quality of life skyrockets and you won't burn out when you're working part-time. Your income goes up and the amount of time you have to work goes down. And it's called leverage of time and money. It all happens with knowledge and skill. That's how it all happens. And that's exactly what we teach. That's what we did with Dr. Jeff. So in 1 year, he has a $600,000 turnaround. And that's pretty standard. The story I just shared with you, that's real common. Doctors come in, they're seeing 60, 70, 100 visits a week. We take their practice up to 150, 200, as much as they can handle. Usually that's about a $200,000 increase pretty easily. Then we teach how to hire and train associate doctors. That comes up another $150,000, roughly 200. And then we teach how to take that money and leverage it into real estate, buy at least 2 properties a year with owner financing. 5 years later, you're a multimillionaire. You got a 6-figure passive income. And that's the definition of retirement, is when your passive income exceeds your fixed expenses. That's how it's done. That's exactly how I was able to retire at age 32. That's the system I teach. Again, I'm Dr. Paul. So you can check us out. My website actually is secretsofchiropracticsuccess.com, the secretsofchiropracticsuccess.com. And you can go there for more information. By the way, I have a YouTube channel, Secrets of Chiropractic Success YouTube, tons of videos. I've got over 2,000 videos on how to be successful on all these different topics. You can go there and learn a lot of free information. Sign up for the newsletter. I usually send out 2 or 3 free information every week on different topics on, how to overcome the issues that you're dealing with. They're the same issues. Every chiropractor's got the same issues. They think they're unique to their own, but they're not. They're not. They're all pretty much the same. You just have to get the blueprint and apply the blueprint. That's all. That's all. And the story of human nature doesn't change. How we buy products and services and feel and the emotion hasn't changed 5,000 years. We have the same emotions, desires. Only thing that changes is technology. Human nature doesn't change. And the reason I say that is marketing doesn't change. The core concepts of marketing are the exact concepts 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 500 years ago. They're just real clean and well-defined right now. That's all. We know exactly what they are. We know exactly how to keep people. We know how to get patients. We know we got the total science, the total blueprint down. There is no guessing. Again, I'm Dr. Paul. I've opened 77 offices in 20 states. Past speaker, 3 chiropractic colleges. Was awarded the President's Award at Logan College of Chiropractic. So check us out. Give me a call. I can do a practice analysis with you and show you exactly what you can do the fastest to make the most money the fastest based on your statistics. That's what I did with that doctor the other day. He was losing 52% of his patients. I said, this is going to be easy. When you're losing that many patients, it's pretty easy once you learn the system to keep them. So anyway, check us out, secretschiropracticsuccess.com. If you're interested in having a free practice analysis, that will show you exactly the #1 thing you can do based on where you're at and what you're doing and what you know. What can you do to make the most money the fastest? Check us out. Give me a call. I'm Dr. Paul, secretsofchiropracticsuccess.com. Phone number is 954-740-2722. Give me a call for the free analysis.